There is a room you are not allowed to know about. It has no windows, no address on any public map. The employees who work inside it sign contracts that prohibit them from describing what they see. Not to their spouses, not to their children, not to their government. Armed guards rotate in 6-hour shifts around a perimeter that stretches for blocks. Overhead, surveillance satellites operated by at least 3 different nations track every vehicle that approaches the facility. And inside those walls, a machine the width of a school bus is printing objects so small they cannot be seen by the human eye. Objects so precise that a single speck of dust in the wrong place destroys an entire batch. Objects so consequential that if production stopped today, right now, this moment, within 72 hours, the global economy would not slow down. It would not stumble. It would stop, completely, permanently. You have never heard of this place, but your life depends on it every single day. Welcome to Hsinchu, Taiwan. Welcome to the most dangerous 7 square miles on planet Earth. The facility is called TSMC, the Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Company, and what happens inside it is the closest thing to magic that human civilization has ever engineered. Using beams of ultraviolet light, light so extreme it can only exist in a near-perfect vacuum, machines etch circuit patterns onto wafers of silicon, patterns so fine that 2 million of them could fit across a single strand of human hair. The resulting chips, called semiconductors, are the invisible engine of the modern world. Your iPhone has them. Your car has them. The ventilator keeping someone alive in a hospital right now has them. Every missile in the US arsenal has them. Every F-35 fighter jet. Every trading algorithm on Wall Street executing millions of transactions per second. Every satellite orbiting Earth. Every nuclear power plant monitoring its own core temperature. Every traffic light. Every insulin pump. Every air traffic control system on the planet. And here is the fact that almost no one in power wants to say out loud. 80 to 90% of the world's most advanced semiconductors, the ones everything critical runs on, come from a single island 60 miles off the coast of mainland China. An island that China has openly, repeatedly, and legally declared to be its territory. An island it has promised to reunify with, by force if necessary. Let that settle for a moment. The entire technological foundation of modern civilization is balanced on a geographic fault line between 2 nuclear-armed superpowers, and one of them is actively drawing up war plans. This is not a theory. This is not speculation. This is the world we actually live in. To understand how we got here, you have to go back to 1987. A Taiwanese engineer named Morris Chang, who had spent years at Texas Instruments in America, had a radical idea. What if a company only manufactured chips? What if it became the world's greatest factory and let everyone else bring their blueprints? Silicon Valley could dream. TSMC would build. The idea worked beyond anyone's imagination. Because the economics of semiconductor manufacturing are brutal. A single fabrication plant, called a fab, costs between $15 and $20 billion to build. The machines inside require calibration so precise that the vibrations from a passing truck can ruin an entire production run. The process involves over 1,000 individual steps, and a single error at step 400 can only be discovered at step 900. The learning curve is measured not in months, but in decades. So, the world did the rational thing. It outsourced. Apple outsourced. NVIDIA outsourced. AMD outsourced. The US military suppliers outsourced. Europe outsourced. Japan outsourced. And TSMC got better. Year after year, generation after generation of chip technology, they pulled further ahead. Today, TSMC doesn't just lead the semiconductor industry. In advanced chip manufacturing, TSMC practically is the semiconductor industry. America, the nation that invented the transistor, that pioneered the microchip, that launched the digital revolution, currently manufactures 0% of the world's most advanced semiconductors on its own soil. 0. And China, the nation that wants Taiwan, manufactures approximately 0% as well. Not because they haven't tried, they have. Spent over $150 billion in the last decade attempting to build a domestic chip industry. They have recruited engineers, stolen blueprints, reverse engineered equipment, and they are still generations behind. Which means that if China takes Taiwan, even without firing a single shot, it inherits the keys to the most powerful industrial asset in human history: the ability to decide who gets the chips that run the world's militaries, economies, and infrastructure. That is not a trade war. That is checkmate. Now, here is where the tension becomes almost unbearable, because the people who understand this best are the ones who are most afraid to say it. In 2021, a global chip shortage caused by nothing more catastrophic than pandemic supply chain disruptions and a surge in electronics demand managed to shut down automobile production lines across the United States, Germany, Japan, and South Korea. General Motors alone lost billions in revenue. Ford halted production at multiple plants. Medical device manufacturers warned of shortages. Defense contractors flagged delays in weapons systems. Consumer electronics dried up from store shelves. And that was a shortage, a disruption, a blip. No missiles, no invasion, no war. The actual war scenario, which multiple US defense and intelligence reports have now publicly addressed, is incomparably worse. A RAND Corporation analysis estimated that a conflict in the Taiwan Strait could cost the global economy over $10 trillion in the first year. The Rhodium Group estimated the total cascading loss at over $2 trillion per month. The Department of Defense has acknowledged that without Taiwanese chips, production of several key weapon systems would effectively halt. Think about what that means. The United States of America, the most powerful military in the history of the world, has acknowledged that its ability to fight a war depends on chips made on the island that war would be fought over. The irony is so severe, it becomes a kind of horror. And the clock is ticking. Xi Jinping has made Taiwan reunification the central mission of his leadership. Chinese military exercises around Taiwan have escalated dramatically since 2021. Air incursions into Taiwan's defense zone now occur on an almost daily basis. In August 2022, China conducted its largest military exercises in a generation, surrounding the island with naval forces in what analysts described as a rehearsal for blockade. Satellite imagery has shown accelerating construction of amphibious assault vehicles. Chinese military doctrine, openly published, now includes detailed scenarios for rapid seizure of strategic infrastructure. The question being asked in the most classified rooms in Washington, Brussels, and Tokyo is no longer if China will move on Taiwan, it is when, and what happens to the chips. TSMC knows this. Its founder, Morris Chang, now in his 90s, has spoken with unusual candor about what he calls the weaponization of global supply chains. TSMC has quietly begun construction of new fabrication plants in Arizona, Japan, and Germany, not because it is more economical to manufacture there. It is dramatically more expensive. It is a hedge, an insurance policy, an acknowledgement that the concentration of the world's most critical manufacturing in the world's most contested regions is a risk that can no longer be ignored. But here is the brutal reality of semiconductor manufacturing that makes the hedge almost irrelevant in the short term. Building a fab takes 4 to 5 years from groundbreaking to first chip. Training the workforce to operate it at full efficiency takes another 3 to 5 years. TSMC's Arizona plant, celebrated as a major step in onshoring American chip production, will not reach full capacity until the early 2030s at the earliest. And even then, it will produce only a fraction of what Taiwan produces. There is no backup plan that works fast enough. There was a moment, quiet, largely unreported, in late 2022 when intelligence analysts at the National Security Agency circulated an internal assessment. Its conclusion, according to individuals familiar with its contents who later spoke to investigative journalists, in a Taiwan contingency scenario, the United States has no adequate response that doesn't involve accepting either the loss of Taiwan or the loss of global chip supply. It is a binary choice, and neither option is acceptable. One former senior Pentagon official described it this way: "We have built the most sophisticated military machine in human history, and we have handed its ignition key to a geopolitical flashpoint." That is the situation. And in Hsinchu, the machines keep printing, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. Billions of chips moving in temperature-controlled cargo containers onto planes and ships bound for every corner of the planet. Each one smaller than a fingernail, each one holding more transistors than there are stars visible in the night sky. Each one the product of a supply chain so complex and so globally distributed that disrupting it would be like trying to rebuild a human body from scratch. The men and women who work inside those fabs understand what they are doing. Some of them have quietly moved their families abroad. Some of them have applied for immigration visas to countries without extradition treaties with China. Some of them have said nothing because saying something would confirm what everyone already suspects. There is a concept in geopolitical strategy called the Thucydides trap, the dangerous dynamic that emerges when a rising power threatens to displace a ruling one. Of the 16 times this dynamic has occurred throughout recorded history, 12 ended in war. We are living inside the 17th, and the prize, the asset that neither side can afford to win or lose, is a machine in a windowless room in Taiwan, printing objects you cannot see that control everything you touch. There's a term the intelligence community has borrowed for this situation. They call it a single point of failure, a place in a system where one disruption causes total collapse. Engineers spend careers trying to eliminate single points of failure from critical infrastructure. Redundancy, backup systems, distributed architecture. The global technology economy has a single point of failure. It is 60 miles from mainland China. And the system was designed this way, not by accident, but by decades of rational economic decisions, each one making perfect sense in isolation, each one contributing to a collective vulnerability of almost incomprehensible scale. The question is not whether we built a house of cards. We know we did. The question is whether anyone will move fast enough to build something different before someone decides to test how quickly it falls. In boardrooms in Cupertino and Austin and Amsterdam, executives are now quietly running contingency scenarios titled things like Day 1 without Taiwan and 6-month chip famine. The language is clinical. The implications are not. 6 months without advanced semiconductor supply means no new smartphones, no new data centers, no new weapon systems, no replacement components for failing infrastructure. At 12 months, economists stop using the word recession and start using words they haven't used since the 1930s. One analyst briefing a congressional committee in 2023 reportedly used a single sentence to summarize the situation. We have outsourced our civilization's nervous system. And somewhere in Hsinchu, the machines keep printing. Here is what keeps the people who know this awake at night. Not the known risks, but the unknown trigger. Not the war scenario they've wargamed, but the one they haven't imagined. A cyber attack on fab control systems, an earthquake. Taiwan sits on the world's most active seismic zone. A political miscalculation in Beijing, a provocation that spirals too fast for diplomacy to catch. A single decision in a single room by a single person, and the lights start going out one by one in ways that cannot be reversed. The world has never been more connected. The world has never been more fragile, and the thread holding it together is thinner than any circuit it has ever produced. We built a civilization on sand and called it silicon. We handed the future to a factory, and now we wait, and we watch, and we hope that the machines keep printing. Because the day they stop, everything stops with them. And if that thought leaves you unsettled, if you're realizing for the first time how many of history's most catastrophic moments began not with weapons, but with documents and intelligence that was ignored, then there is one more story you need to hear. A single page, one memo, written before September 11th. It had all the answers, and nobody acted on it. That story is next.